From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark wraps up his conversation with the National Pork Board about the National Swine Health Strategy. I have the latest U.S. export sales with Greg McBride of Allendale, and Dustin discusses E15 with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Welcome into the Friday edition of Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Dustin, as we wrap up the week here today, earlier this morning, actually, it was the 250th America Celebration tree that was planted at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. That was an event that was held for Iowa 4-H and FFA students. State leaders were there as well at the fairgrounds to plant Iowa's official America 250 tree. And the event, part of celebrating the nation's 250th birthday and honoring Iowa's deep agricultural roots. And I was going to ask you, do you know what kind of tree they planted?
That I do not. When I talked with Secretary Naig about it, we didn't get a chance to talk about the actual tree they were planting, which type they planted. But we did.
I actually have the answer for you.
Oh, okay.
It was a bur oak tree. The state tree was planted this morning.
I'm surprised. I would be surprised if it wasn't the state tree. So that is a good choice as always. And yeah, you can find out more of my interview with Secretary Naig. We heard parts of it yesterday here on Iowa Ag Matters, and the story is up on our website at iowaagnet.com as well, talking about that. You know, it's more than just a tree. As he said, it's a link to the next generation, you know, of showing these young leaders and young people that something they do now can have effects later on, and a tree symbolizes that, you know, that it goes on for generations, and you know that was there, and you were, maybe when you're an older person and you have grandkids or something, you can say, hey, I planted this tree when I was your age, you know, kind of thing. And so it also helps us look ahead in a way to look ahead for the future of the country, you know, that we can look back at what we were, but then let's all work together to make something that lasts into the future as well. And so there's a lot of leadership lessons, a lot of life lessons that are coming from that event as well.
Yeah, I'm already looking down the pipeline in my mind's eye, you know, to America 300 celebration, when that tree will be an impressive bur oak tree that's 50 years old on the Iowa State Fairgrounds. I do think that is something cool that was done here this morning at the fairgrounds to really kind of help to kick off the America 250 celebrations. We've been talking about it, but now starting to have these events taking place to honor America's 250th. It's starting to make it feel a little bit more real.
Yeah, I only hope that I could still be sitting in the shade under that tree at America 300, though I highly doubt that will be the case. But yeah, I'll look forward to that. I'll probably stick around, just be ornery enough to stick around to do that. So
Riley will be leading it with the microphone. He'll be there as the MC on that day, I'm sure.
He probably will, because he's probably got the best chance of any of us of being there at 300. But yeah, it should be good. You know, like I said, this is just part of the major events that are scheduled here throughout the year in Iowa to help celebrate the American 250. I'm going to be interested to see what's happening in D.C. next week when we're there. Especially, we're doing an evening monument tour on Tuesday night out there, and you know, with America 250, I'd love to see what that's going to look like as well. So, being in the nation's capital on the nation's 250th birthday is definitely going to be something I'm looking forward to.
And Dustin, you've alluded to it a couple of times, but you are headed to D.C. for an event that is called Washington Watch. That's through the National Association of Farm Broadcasting. What are you looking forward to the most about that event this year?
There's so much to look forward to, especially with what's going on in the ag industry, the issues forum, getting to talk with some of these leaders, as I hinted to yesterday. E15 will definitely, in the Farm Bill, will definitely be a conversation we have. Obviously, trade. I mean, it was a year ago when we were at Washington watching the ag industry was telling the administration, we can't do this forever. And here we are a year later still doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. We'll get to meet with Secretary Rollins in person. We'll, of course, get to go up on the Hill and talk with leaders there as well. So it's an all-around great trip. Looking forward to that. But let's hop into things around here on Iowa Ag Matters. Mark Magnuson had the chance to talk with Matt Bennett of agmarket.net as we get rolling, as the corn and soybeans have been doing a yo-yo since the overnight trade wrapped up this morning. Mark?
Joined today by Matt Bennett of agmarket.net. Matt, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Yeah, it's awful quiet to start. Really, this corn market just continues to, just gradually work higher. I mean, you look at what's happened this week, and basically, you're up a couple cents, up a penny, up a quarter yesterday, or up a penny yesterday, and you're up a quarter today. it's just not doing much, but it's not falling out of bed. And I do think that, there's an underlying level of support for corn, as so many of these areas continue to get rain here and there. I know in your part of the world, some guys have been able to run and gals have been able to run the last day or two, but then you get stopped by rain, talking a bunch of rain again next week. So, you're starting to get closer to May, and I do think that that's a little supportive towards corn, that if you'd come in here 1st of May with a wet forecast again, I think it could get a little more serious. And I think that's part of the reason this corn market's seeing some support in here.
And have the wheat growing areas of the country gotten any of this rainfall at all?
No, not enough. That's the thing. And you look at those crop ratings, and that hard red winter wheat crop, the farther west you get, it's just a really dire situation. And I think it's going to be impactful, on what this wheat crop's going to look like. You got to keep in mind that the U.S. is not a big player in wheat. We definitely don't grow the biggest crop. You get into the Black Sea region, if you have major weather issues there, it's going to be much more impactful for the wheat market. But by all means, you're likely to cut into, the carryout situation here in the U.S. Fortunately, I guess, you could say fortunately, but fortunately for the health of the balance sheet, we've got all kinds of wheat right now. But there's no doubt in my mind that if they end up as bad as what it looks right now, that you should see some support in here for wheat. Yesterday, that's one thing that we saw, July wheat, ramped up and, double digits, 12, 13 cents. And so, you look over at KC wheat, same type of action there yesterday. It, very impressive type run yesterday, but it's something I think a lot of us have been kind of sitting around expecting, sooner or later you'd see something like that happen. So, with KC wheat up 29, 30 cents there yesterday, that's a heck of a run, but we're giving a little bit of it back here. Yesterday was the highest close we'd seen in a long time for KC wheat.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters. It is time now for Dustin Huffman's conversation with Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig as they discuss all things E15. Of course, permanent year-round E15 legislation was recently added as a Farm Bill amendment, so it is the possibility of being included into the Farm Bill, but this conversation took place before that was added as an amendment. But Dustin has the full conversation now with Secretary Naig.
I know one thing we seem to be talking a lot about, and we were hoping to have resolved by now, but we've been saying that for years, is the E15 situation. Of course, we've got it resolved on our end. We've talked about that at great length, but we did get some good numbers coming in from the Department of Revenue. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my gosh, I wish we were, we would have liked to have been talking about congressional action on this months ago, but here we still are. And, there's still vehicles that are possible for that year-round nationwide access to E15 fix. And my goodness, now more than ever, from an affordability standpoint, from a supply standpoint, from a price of oil standpoint, this continues to make all kinds of sense. So we're going to continue to make that argument. But here in Iowa, we did have the annual report that comes out from Department of Revenue on fuel usage and specifically around E15. Fuel marketers report those gallons of those sales to Department of Revenue. And what we saw in 2015 or 2025 was a 60% increase in the amount of E15 that was pumped over 2024. So 60% increase. Also, the total savings of for Iowans who purchased E15 as opposed to E10 was $60 million. That's real money, and that's we're still increasing the number of fueling stations that are offering E15. As we sit here today, it's just over half of the stations, about 1,100, are offering E15. And we expect to add a couple hundred more here by the end of the calendar year. And then any new fueling stations or new pumps that are put in will be required to carry or offer E15. And so this is something that'll only build well into the future. So that 60 million in savings and that 60% increase last year will only increase here as we look at these numbers for 2026. So we like to say we're not only just leading in advocating and making biofuels, we're leading in consuming them as well. And really, Iowans are better off because of it. Now, wouldn't it be nice if every American had a chance to see that kind of savings?
And it's something we've been talking about. It's just about making it available too. No one's forcing anybody to use it, but it's also creating certainty for our farmers to make sure that that demand is there, especially when we're producing the volume of corn we're producing.
100%. Actually, that's the takeaway for me, is that when E15 is available, Iowans choose it. And we know that. I mean, research is showing it's the cheapest, highest octane that you can get, right? Unleaded 88. It's a good fuel. It's a high performance fuel. And when it's available, Iowans choose it. So it's interesting that now it really is becoming a market driver. Is you better have it. You want it to be available at your fueling station because Iowans are choosing it when it's there. It provides certainty. And certainly if we had year-round access nationwide, then that would send a growth signal to the ethanol industry. I mean, think of it. You go from E10 to E15, you can grind more corn, the basis improves, and farmers are better off. But also those consumers are saving that 10 to 15 cents per gallon on fuel as well. So the certainty comes both for the industry, but also for the fuel marketers, right? They're the ones that really need to make the investment or change that pump over. And they need the certainty that comes with that congressional action. So look, it's just certainty makes it more available to Iowans and Americans, and that would be a good thing for all of us.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
It's time to run down those basis numbers for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this 24th of April. I'm Dustin Huffman. Not very many changes made to the bids that are coming out today. In fact, only 3 elevators made any kind of adjustments, all of them to the positive side on both soybeans and corn. Let's go ahead and run down those numbers for you. ADM Burlington, 2 cents under on corn, $4.53. Soybeans, 15 cents under, $11.45. Cargill and Eddyville, 11 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.44. New Co-op Algona, 36 cents under on corn, $4.19. Soybeans, 65 cents under, cash price $10.95. Ag State Sheldon, 20 cents under on corn, $4.35. Soybeans, 70 cents under at $10.90. Ag State Elta, 30 cents under on corn, $4.25 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $10.95. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 9 cents under on corn, $4.46. Soybeans, 20 cents under with a cash price of $11.40. 5-Star Co-op Nashua, 26 cents under on corn, $4.29. Soybeans, 59 cents under at $11.01. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 15 cents under on corn, $4.40 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, 20 cents under on soybeans, their cash price $11.40. New Co-op Red Oak, they're 28 cents under on corn, $4.27. Soybeans, 60 cents under at $11. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 43 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.12. Soybeans, 70 cents under at $10.90. New Co-op Sheraton, 28 cents under on corn, $4.27. Soybeans, 60 cents under, cash price $11. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 42 cents under on corn, $4.13. Soybeans, 60 cents under at $11 even. New Co-op Glidden, 35 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.20. Soybeans, 62 cents under at $10.98. Innovative Ag Farley, 40 cents under on corn, $4.15. Soybeans, 64 cents under, cash price $10.96. And Cargill Muscatine, a dime under on corn, $4.45. Soybeans, 17 cents under at $11.43. Just a reminder that cash, corn, and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. With this check of your basis numbers on Iowa Ag Matters, I'm Dustin Huffman. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
And back on Iowa Ag Matters, as we've been having a conversation, Mark Magnuson has with the National Pork Board the last couple of days and about the National Swine Health Initiative. And we're going to find out the last bit of this here as we wrap up that conversation right now with Mark.
This is the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. My name is Mark Magnuson, and I'm joined today by Meredith Peterson of the National Pork Board and Iowa pork producer Jeremy Robertson as well, joining me here today. And speaking with Meredith Peterson earlier this year at Iowa Pork Congress, able to talk some more about the National Swine Health Strategy. And Meredith, could you update us then on where we are with the rollout of the National Swine Health Strategy? And is it available to all producers then to dive into this information?
Yeah, so I would recommend any producer go to porkcheckoff.org/strategy. That's where any updates related to the National Swine Health Strategy will be provided. So as I mentioned, the goals and priorities are finalized. We're now in a process of outlining what those next steps are, and we've received feedback from producers on that. We are assembling at the Pork Board a producer advisory committee to help us prioritize those next steps. As you reflect on where this has been, producer leadership has been integral every step of the way, and we want to continue that through an advisory committee. I think when we think about the next steps, they're different depending on the goal. And so on the foreign animal and emerging disease side of things, we don't have those diseases. And so we're playing a little bit more defense, focusing on preparedness, prevention, and response planning. On the endemic disease side of things, our approach will be different. Those are diseases we have and can be a little bit more, take more of an offensive approach to what are the protocols and ways that we can get rid of those diseases at the individual farm level, and then just continue from there in terms of working towards really making some impact on reduction of those diseases.
Jeremy, is there anything else you'd like to let our Iowa listeners or Iowa producers know about when it comes to the National Swine Health Strategy, how you've been involved, or just anything that you're excited about in terms of learning more about these diseases and helping to fight back against them with this National Swine Health Strategy?
Absolutely, Mark. And it's hard to ask the producer to get excited about disease, right? But I am excited, and I'm fortunate to be on the advisory committee. And for starters, as Meredith stated earlier, this has to be producer-led. And, you know, as a representative of that, I feel we need to be very hopeful and driven because there's a very large ask. And there's a lot of variables to it. And listen to Meredith talk there just shows how comprehensive this plan is, talking about the here and now and the status of our industry and the future of our industry. I think there's going to be some ask for producer adoption and involvement. And HOPE's got to be at the forefront of that because we know what as the saying goes, if you want what you got, keep doing what you're doing. And we don't want to deal with this for life, but we also know that eradication is a large step. And a large commitment, and it starts with biocontainment and with future goals that we can measure to get towards elimination. It involves state participation, whether it be locally or at state organization levels. Just the review to know, like Meredith commented, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So this is a long-term commitment. I think we need to hold ourselves accountable as not only a committee, but an industry. And as this program serves updates, or has published info that helps producers. To her point, that'll be published on porkcheckoff.org. And then it's really critical for me as involved as a producer that we need to work on alignment for this initiative with allied industry partners utilizing existing frameworks such as U.S. SHIP or U.S. Swine Health Improvement Plan to help tie things together and utilize resources in play today.
Meredith, is there anything else you'd like to pass along to our Iowa listeners or Iowa producers and just kind of wrap things up here today about the National Swine Health Strategy?
Yeah, in closing, I think I just would like to remind the audience that really at the heart of it, the National Swine Health Strategy is a set of goals and priorities created by producers that the whole industry can rally behind. I think if a producer is asking how they can be involved, I would certainly point them to their state pork association. As mentioned, this is kind of a grassroots effort of hearing from producers on the front end and having producers in leadership through the entire process. And that really starts with our state pork associations. And so if a producer is interested in becoming more involved, not only checking out our website, but also getting involved at the state level is really important. That ladders up to the work we do. And without that producer engagement, it's a lot more challenging to understand what's happening in the industry. And so we'll just really encourage participation from producers, and happy to be a resource as they have questions.
She is Dr. Meredith Peterson of the National Pork Board, and also Jeremy Robertson, a Southeast Iowa hog producer. Thanks so much for the time here today, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm Mark Magnuson on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Well, Dustin, yesterday I had the chance to visit a farm northeast of the Des Moines Metro. I was in the Collins-Maxwell area, and did notice some standing water in some fields, which was not a surprise with how much rain we've gotten, and we got more yesterday. And then here today, we've cooled off actually quite a bit to begin the day. This morning, it was in the 40s on my way to work. What's that done to our 4-inch soil temperatures?
Well, it has dropped them just a little bit. I'm not too surprised by that, but they remain mostly in the upper 50s, mid to upper 50s there. In fact, the lowest one we see is 55. So if you're able to get in the field at all, you can still do your anhydrous or get your seeds going. But boy, that was a rocky night last night. Boy, the tornado warnings throughout a good chunk of the state there, especially around the Des Moines area. I was sitting there last night in the basement watching it, and which that's just where I was anyway, but watching the activity, and I was like, oh, there's one heading right towards Mark. And, you sit and think that, oh, crud, it doesn't usually happen in the cities too often, but that rotation, thankfully nothing touched down, at least in our area. But, east of us, there was some touchdown. Northeast of us, there was a little bit of a touchdown, but, damage was pretty sporadic at that point.
Yes, it was one of those scary nights where you're watching the weather very closely because you're worried about what might happen. And that was certainly the case last night. Fortunately, as you said, it didn't seem to get too bad in the actual metro area. And it sounds like, as you mentioned, that damage was kind of sporadic around the central Iowa area.
Yep, that it was. And we will get to the midday markets next here on Iowa Ag Matters.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined at midday by Lori Carter of Comstock for the Midday Market discussion. Lori, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
The grains are all red at the moment. Leading on the downside would be Kansas City wheat. It's down 12 3/4 to 13 cents. Chicago wheat's down 5 1/2 to 6. Corn's down 1 1/4 to 1 1/2, and soybeans down 3/4 to 2 cents.
And with the wheat being down again, is this a continuation of the weather concerns?
I do think we've made a big run up, especially in Kansas City wheat earlier this week, and we do have maybe some wetter looking forecasts coming in.
And with the situation here today, is the wheat down enough that it's pulling the rest of the commodities with it, or are those two things separate, do you think?
I don't think it's pulling anything down, really. All we've done is come back kind of to where we broke out to the upside yesterday so far. We also have May option expiration today, so that may be a factor as well in the other grains.
What other stories are you watching on the grain side right now that could be market movers as we get ready for next week?
A weaker dollar, a spillover from what's going on in Iran, those, I guess, and then some crop conditions reports, specifically on the wheat that we'll get on Monday, I guess, will be coming up.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Cattle green across the board. We have fat cattle up $1.07 to $1.40. Feeder cattle up $1.87 to $2.90 up across the board. Hogs a little wimpy, down for 50 to 65 cents.
And it does sound like New World screwworm concerns are in the picture again. Well, I know they're always lurking in the background, but have cropped up again. Do you think that's giving some support to the cattle side?
Probably so, just a little less likely or a little pushback on the time that we might get the border open. Also, some technical feeder cattle closing yesterday back above the 50-day moving average, so technical support as well.
Lori, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
You can call me at 712-227-1171.
Lori Carter of Comstock, my guest here at midday. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Start your trading day the right way with Market Matters, the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network's first look at the grain markets. Every morning, we bring you the numbers from the overnight session, plus a quick snapshot of the macro economy and what's driving market moves. Need to know what's coming next? Market Matters gives you a daily preview of market-moving news and reports so you're ready for the trading day ahead. And don't miss our daily livestock market outlook. Get the analyst predictions before the markets open. Get the edge you need. Tune into Market Matters every weekday morning, only on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
May corn down 1.5 at $4.54. December corn down 1/2 cent at $4.83. May soybeans down a penny at $11.58 3/4. November soybeans down 2 1/4 at $11.52 3/4. May soybean meal up $1.20 at $3.21.80. May soybean oil down 14 cents at $71.52. Chicago wheat down 5 cents at $6.05 3/4. Minneapolis wheat is down 3 cents at $6.72. Kansas City hard red wheat down 8.5 at $6.58 1/4. May oats up 2.5 at $3.23. On the Merc, June live cattle up $1.45 at $244.95. May feeder cattle up $2.38 at $361.25. May lean hogs down 43 cents at $95.23. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, we're back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we're going to shift things over now to the livestock side of the marketplace as Matt Bennett rejoins the conversation. He's from agmarket.net and talking with Mark Magnuson about those cattle and hog markets and what we're seeing right now.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Yeah, I mean, you got some strength here at the end of the week, what we're looking at right now. I mean, of course, last week, you kind of went up there and put what looked like kind of a triple top in. We kind of went down since then. Yesterday, I think the market kind of caught hold whenever Secretary Rollins said she was not going to have a press conference here today. News of, this screwworm situation being within 60, 80 miles of the U.S. border is certainly problematic for anyone thinking that this border is going to open anytime soon. So a little bit of buying here at the end of the week. I've got to think that maybe is partially some profit taking on people that had shorted that triple top up there.
Matt Bennett, agmarket.net, my guest here today. Head to agmarket.net for all of the marketing information and resources. Matt, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely, buddy, as well.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
It's time now for our weekly export sales report with Greg McBride of Allendale, Riley Smith with more, as you're listening to the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and Iowa Ag Matters.
On the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale as we take a look at the weekly U.S. export sales report. First off, Greg, what do we see in the latest corn numbers this week?
Yeah, we've had decent sales, continuing to see strong sales in the corn side of things. We did hit 1.3 million tons of corn for old crop. We also, as we talked about last week, we had some flash sales that were for 3 years worth of marketing years for the corn market. So the new crop corn came in at 440,000 tons, which is fairly aggressive. Overall, 1.756 million tons for the corn side of things here. Beans, not exactly a big report for this one, but it was better than what we've seen. So the 5-year average comes in at a very minor 183,000 tons. We came in basically at double that today for this particular week, 364,000 tons. It's not going to change the situation for beans at this point, as we've missed the last 9 out of 11 weeks. But it is good to see somewhat of an improvement and to exceed expectations.
And then on the soybean side of things, we know that marketplace has been a little more disappointing recently. How did they do this week?
Yeah, that 364,000 tons that we had for old crop is a good number. Only 5,000 tons for the new crop. The big thing I would really be watching for is news, and the last couple of days here, we've heard the U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer talking a little more about this meeting between Trump and Xi over in Beijing in the middle of next month. And the conversation, Beans didn't take it very well, because the conversation is more revolving around other agricultural products. Not necessarily that we're getting away from talking about soybeans, but we're branching out and trying to hit more agricultural products, whether that's beef, corn, sorghum, you name it. But beans are definitely not in the spotlight like they were back in say October.
And then as far as flash sales go, have we seen any recently? And, again, how many do we usually see at this time of year?
Yeah, we're getting to that point where we do still see a few here and there on corn. And that's what we've seen. Is we've seen more corn flash sales. We've seen 1 or 2 this week. But overall, we're getting to that point where Brazil is mid-pollination, and they're still setting their sights on what their second crop production is going to look like. So we will continue to see some sales, but we're at that point where they will start to slow down the flash sales for corn. And we'll start to see soybean sales for new crop start to come through over the next few weeks. Nothing huge, but it is that time of the year where you start to see a little bit of a shift from soybeans or from corn to soybeans, and it's just because of the way that the buying goes from China at this point.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anybody who'd like to get in touch for more marketing information, how can they do that?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, Dustin, as I'm reading things as you get ready to go to Washington, D.C., House Republicans ramping up efforts to secure support for the Farm Bill, of course, ahead of a planned vote next week. And G.T. Thompson says quote, I have not had any indication that the vote will be delayed, as he's been talking with the Freedom Caucus and other groups to try to get everything lined up for that vote.
Yeah, I think, it's an election year. So, and there's a lot of angst and there's a lot of argumentative comments being made across constituencies. And so I'm not surprised to see them try to get something done because there's farmers in a lot of states. So we'll see how that plays out. I'll talk to you next week from Washington. You've been listening to Iowa Ag Matters.